Coming live from the studio, this is All Sports with Gerardo. Thank you for watching another episode of All Sports. This is your host, Gerardo. On the show today I'm going to talk about my experience at the Oakland Alameda Coliseum. To start off, at the middle every month, I post a video or talk about one stadium I went to, so stay tuned for future videos from stadiums across the US. For the month of June, I'm going to post a video where I talk about the Oakland Alameda Coliseum and my experience there. For the next 30 months, I will go in order and tell you about every stadium I have been to across the US. When I post a video talking about a stadium I've been to, there will be two different versions. It will be a video where I talk about the stadium if I've already been there, but if it's a stadium I haven't been to yet, then I will post a video showing you the stadium. So to start off, right now I'm going to give you some background history about the Oakland Alameda Coliseum. It's located in Oakland, California. It's located next to the Oracle Arena, which was the former home of the Warriors. The Oakland Alameda Coliseum is the home of the Athletics, the Major League Baseball team, and the Raiders, the NFL football team. The Oakland Alameda Coliseum is the only remaining stadium here in the US that is shared by a Major League Baseball team and an NFL football team. There's a lot of history from the Raiders, Athletics, and other events that have been hosted at the Oakland Alameda Coliseum in the past. So they broke ground for the Oakland Alameda Coliseum in April of 1964, and it opened in September of 1966. The Coliseum was renovated from 1995 to 1996. So before the Coliseum was renovated, the Coliseum looked a lot different from what it looks like today. If you look at pictures of it from the past, it definitely has a different layout. An example of what the Oakland Alameda Coliseum used to look like in the past, if you look at pictures of what Candlestick Park used to look like, or Dodger Stadium. Those two stadiums would be great examples of what the Oakland Alameda Coliseum used to look like in the past. But once they renovated the Coliseum, if you look at it today or look at pictures of the Coliseum in the last 2 decades, it definitely looks a lot different from what it looked like in the past. The Coliseum has the same layout behind home plate and on the first and third base side if you have the configurations of an athletics game. But the outfield of the Coliseum for an athletics game or even during a Raiders game definitely looks a lot different. That's the area that they mainly renovated, and they added more seats and more decks to the Oakland Alameda Coliseum when it was renovated in 1995 to 1996. So before the Coliseum was renovated, there was a lot less seats, but after the Coliseum was renovated, more seats were added to the Coliseum. The Oakland Alameda Coliseum has a seating capacity of over 46,800 seats for the athletics games, and the seating can be expanded to 55,900 seats, and it has a seating capacity of over 56,000 seats for the Raiders games, and the seating can be expanded to 63,100 seats. By seating capacity, it's the second smallest NFL stadium. So looking at the layout of the Oakland Alameda Coliseum, it definitely has two different layouts, especially for an athletics game and a Raiders game. Now if it's an athletics game, the bullpens are down the foul lines on the first and third base side of the Coliseum. For an athletics game, there's less seats, and most of the seats in the upper deck are covered by tarp. Also, to get into the clubhouse and to come onto the field, you have to enter in and out of the Coliseum from the tunnels that are near home plate. And that is really the only way in and out from the clubhouse onto the field at the Coliseum. Since the dugouts at the Coliseum don't have their own tunnel access through the dugout, for an athletics game, they also take out some of the seats in the outfield since they have to shift the seats in the stadium for an athletics game or a Raiders game. Now for a Raiders game, there's definitely more seats, and when they need to transition from athletics game to a Raiders game, they have to put the seats back in the outfield. They have to shift the stadium and the seats to a football field from a baseball field configurations. Now when the season starts for the Raiders during the preseason and the regular season in September, there's usually the dirt from the configuration of the baseball diamond of the athletics game, and they usually leave it like that until the athletics season ends, so they don't have to keep putting grass or dirt and changing it back and forth since there's more athletics games compared to Raiders games during that time of year. There's also one tunnel that is used by the Raiders and the visitors that's in between the two dugouts for an athletics game. And the configuration of the seats is also changed and put in style for a Raiders game. But if you watch a Raiders game, you can definitely tell that you can see the layout of what it would look like during an athletics game. Behind the benches and behind the end zones, you can tell how the tarp is low and then it goes high, because that would be the configurations of a baseball field going down the foul lines of the first or third base side, and once the outfield begins on left or right field. So something that's unique about the Oakland Alameda Coliseum is that the Raiders and the Athletics share the stadium, and it has the configurations to be put in place for a baseball or football game. So that is definitely one unique thing about the Coliseum, since an NFL and Major League Baseball team shares the same stadium, and the Raiders and the Athletics are the only two teams in the NFL and in Major League Baseball that still share a stadium. For the last 10 to 15 years, both the Athletics and the Raiders have been trying to get their own stadium and a new stadium in the Oakland area. For the last few years, both teams have proposed potential sites and layouts of a new stadium at the current site where the Oakland Alameda Coliseum is and in other parts of Oakland, but the plans have fallen through. Since the Athletics and the Raiders have been fighting for a new stadium at the current site where the Oakland Alameda Coliseum is or in other parts of Oakland, for the last few years, both the Athletics and the Raiders have been threatening to relocate to another city in California or in a different state if the city of Oakland won't build a new stadium for the Athletics and the Raiders. But just recently, the Athletics and the Raiders have shown their plans for the future. The Athletics have played at the Coliseum in Oakland since 1968. The Raiders have played at the Coliseum in Oakland from 1966 to 1981 before relocating to Los Angeles from 1982 to 1994. The Raiders returned back to Oakland in 1995, and they have been in Oakland since 1995. After the 2016 season, since the Raiders weren't able to get a new stadium in Oakland, they were threatening to relocate to another city in a different state. So during the off-season, in March of 2017, after the Raiders announced their proposal of relocating to another city, during the off-season, the Raiders were proposing potential cities of where they could possibly relocate. And they also announced their plans of relocating to another city. In March of 2017, the Raiders announced they're relocating to Las Vegas in 2020. After the NFL and the owners of every team in the NFL voted, in March of 2017, the NFL approved the Raiders relocating to Las Vegas in 2020, and it was approved, and their new stadium is currently being built right now. The Raiders are expected to have their new stadium ready and open for the 2020 season, and the Raiders are also expected to relocate from Oakland to Las Vegas in 2020. The Raiders are looking forward to relocating to Las Vegas in 2020, having a new stadium, and starting a new chapter of Raiders history. But this isn't the first time the Raiders have relocated from Oakland. The Raiders started in Oakland, they relocated to Los Angeles, they went back to Oakland, and now they're relocating to Las Vegas. But the Raiders are definitely looking forward to their new stadium and playing Raiders football in Las Vegas. And Las Vegas can't wait for the Raiders in 2020 to relocate to Las Vegas. Las Vegas is very excited for the Raiders. And in 2020, the Raiders will be called the Las Vegas Raiders, so I can't wait for that. But the Raiders are expecting the 2019 season to be the last season they play in Oakland and at the Oakland Alameda Coliseum. In November of 2018, the Athletics announced the team has chosen to build its new 34,000-seat ballpark at the Howard Terminal site at the Port of Oakland. So we're going to have to see what happens. But after the Raiders leave in 2019 from the Oakland Alameda Coliseum in Oakland, the Athletics are only expecting to play a few more seasons at the Oakland Alameda Coliseum as their new ballpark is being built in Oakland. So we're going to have to wait and see how many more seasons the Athletics play at the Oakland Alameda Coliseum. But they're definitely looking forward to having their own ballpark and having a new stadium in the Oakland area. For the last few years, the Athletics were also threatening to relocate to another city if the city of Oakland wasn't going to build a new stadium for the Athletics. But in the next few years, the Raiders will have a new stadium in Las Vegas since they're relocating to Las Vegas in 2020. Also, in the next few years, the Athletics are expected to have their own ballpark and have a new stadium in the city of Oakland. So we're going to have to wait and see when the city of Oakland starts building the new ballpark for the Athletics and what year the Athletics move into their new ballpark. But the Athletics are definitely looking forward to remaining in Oakland and having their new ballpark. The Athletics also announced its intent to purchase the Coliseum site and make the site into a tech and housing hub, preserving Oracle Arena and reducing the Coliseum into a low-rise sports park. So after the Raiders relocate to their new stadium in Las Vegas and the Athletics relocate to their new ballpark in Oakland, the plans for the site of where the current Oakland Alameda Coliseum and the Oracle Arena stands right now is definitely going to change, and it's going to look a lot different in the future than what it looks like today. So the city of Oakland's definitely looking forward to that as well. So right now I'm going to tell you about my experience at the Oakland Alameda Coliseum. I went to the Oakland Alameda Coliseum in August of 2015. What I liked about the Oakland Alameda Coliseum is that the Athletics and the Raiders share the Coliseum. The Athletics is the only Major League Baseball team, and the Raiders are the only NFL team to share the same stadium. So it was nice to be able to see how the Coliseum looks for an Athletics game and for a Raiders game, and how they have to change the configurations of the Coliseum for an Athletics game and for a Raiders game. So if there's one thing I can recommend, since this is the last year for the Raiders to play in Oakland at the Oakland Alameda Coliseum, I would highly recommend, if you get the opportunity, to go out to Oakland and check out an Athletics game and the Raiders game, since you'll be able to have the opportunity to see how the Coliseum looks for an Athletics game and how the Coliseum looks for a Raiders game, and how the configuration's different for an Athletics or a Raiders game. And it's definitely interesting to see how they changed the Coliseum from a baseball stadium to a football stadium, and how they prepare the Coliseum for an Athletics game or a Raiders game, and how they have to change the logos, the field, and the layout of the stadium for an Athletics game or a Raiders game. Also, if you're in Oakland, since you're in the Bay Area, you gotta check out Oakland, but you also need to go to the other side of the bay and check out San Francisco. There's a lot to do and see in the Bay Area, especially in San Francisco. Another thing I would recommend, if you're in the Bay Area, if you have enough time to be in Oakland and in San Francisco, but especially in the Bay Area, if there's one thing I could recommend, you definitely need to go see and check out an Athletics game at the Oakland Alameda Coliseum in Oakland and a Giants game at Oracle Park in San Francisco. There is a lot to do and see in San Francisco, which includes the Golden Gate Bridge, Alcatraz Island, Fisherman's Wharf, Pier 39, Lombard Street, Chinatown, Baker Beach, and Alamo Square. There's a lot to do and see in the San Francisco area. Those are the main attractions, and those are the main attractions I would highly recommend that you go and see in San Francisco. So if there's one thing I could recommend, if you head out to the Bay Area, you definitely got to see an Athletics game at the Oakland Alameda Coliseum, a Giants game at Oracle Park. You definitely need to go see all the main attractions in San Francisco. And you need to check out the Bay Area. If you have enough time and you're going to spend a couple days in the Bay Area. But you definitely need to go to Oakland and especially to San Francisco. Tune in middle of July to find out which was the next stadium I visited, and I will also tell you about my experience at that stadium. Tune in to the next All Sports with Gerardo show next week. I want to say thank you to everybody that watches every episode of All Sports. Subscribe or like my pages on social media at All Sports with Gerardo. Until next time, this is Gerardo.